typically what we find is anywhere from thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on any given job that was spent but not recouped.
I am so glad that you're on, because I think you have a very unique and a very valuable perspective, specifically, obviously, around like construction accounting and operations. Obviously, you've been a partner of ours forever.
Mhm.
So I say we just talk about like what you're seeing in the market generally that builders struggle with. We can do some of like the easy, like basic fundamentals that they need to have in place. But even talk about some of the more strategic things that you're seeing the best builders do. So that's what a lot of this thread will be. But for the listeners, who is Chloe Brown?
Chloe Brown. Well, I think it's fun to say how we met, which was I was walking around a construction conference, which for
Yep.
any builders, any partners who have ever walked around one of those, I don't know if you're like me, but you're pretty much dodging every booth that's trying to reel you in. And I'm like a professional dodger. I'm very good at that. And when I walked by Adaptive, I could not dodge you, Reed. Like you pulled me in so good, and we've been friends and peers since then, and it's been
Yes, I am a professional attention getter.
awesome.
Okay, but actually, what was it that pulled you in? What's the difference there? Pump my tires a little bit. What worked well?
I remember that you were asking really good questions, and it's a lot
Mhm.
harder to just walk past someone when they're asking really good questions than somebody who's just kind of trying to pitch you the product right away. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I guess not that I'm a sales consultant, but we can just slide a little sales tip in there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it's all about, right? It's like it's really hard to solve someone's problem if you don't know what their problem is,
Totally,
right?
totally. Yeah.
So no, that's great. Yeah, and it's honestly, I think you were using what, Airtable and like kind of an amalgamation of other tools and stuff like that.
Yes, good memory. We were doing custom solutions through Airtable and some other lightweight tools. So I guess to introduce myself, I'm not a sales consultant.
Yeah,
I am the founder of Wildest Dreams, where we really our core focus is helping construction companies make more money on their jobs. That's where we start with companies, because we really believe that if your core product isn't making money, if the financials of that core product don't make sense, then like it doesn't really make sense to look at like, can we grow the business or can we
totally.
create leverage somewhere? So and the way that we do that is through one, very meticulous job level job costing, job level financials, and two, through leveraging the best kind of cutting edge technologies that the construction industry has to offer. So
Totally. I love it. And that's, so I think just like over the years, because I've just been doing this for almost 10 years now, talking to builders, processes, business solutions, technology. You obviously you talk to people that impact you and you hear, comments that they make and takeaways. And I probably got it from you, or unless we're just organically that aligned. But point being is, why in the hell would you try and scale something if you don't know it's making money, right? Or even not even just making money, but you're making what it should be making, right?
mhm.
It's like any other widget. It'd be insane for Apple to be scaling iPhone building
Mhm.
if they didn't know they were going to be netting X on each unit, right? So I think that transferability into home building is easier said than done, just considering all the nuance with
Mhm.
an 18-month product that you're building, right? Or a 12-month, 6-month product you're building, but also just with the craziness of invoicing and accounts payable, receivable, stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I probably got it from you, because I pitched the same thing. It's like, why are we trying to like take on more units when we don't know what we're making on our current units? So
Yeah, well, and an idea that's definitely not new, and I think, anybody in accounting and construction says this and beyond, I'm sure, is a lot of business owners will say, "Well, I have money in my bank account," and that's kind of their litmus test. So I must be able to hire, so I must be able to grow. But what they might not be thinking about is maybe some of that money is a customer deposit for a job starting in 3 months, or maybe that's sales tax money that you need to pay out, or business tax. There's so much that's wrapped up in that bank account number that doesn't actually tell you really anything about whether or not the business is performing well.
totally, 100%. Well, and so let's like kind of thread into that. And I am curious from like maybe a more rudimentary standpoint, is there's a lot of tech out there. You
Mhm.
guys were building custom solutions, leveraging products like Airtable and other
Mhm.
products. What was the big like aha moment for you to move off of building those more custom solutions, Airtable centric processes into something like Adaptive?
Yeah, so I will say we still leverage those tools extensively. So
Hmm.
my background is in startup tech. My sort of ethos that I'm bringing to our clients is use the best tools for the job that you need to get done, just like they would do on the job site. So if there's a, vendor documentation compliance tool there, which there are many out there, if they're not hitting the mark, we're going to still kind of use our tools and do it the way that we think is best. When in terms of an aha moment or making the switch is when you do find that product that's doing not only what you had custom built, but 10 times better than what you can do, which, not to make this too sales pitchy for Adaptive, but I
Hmm.
mean, that's definitely the case. Adaptive does what we could never build kind of custom in a solution of ours. So, and I think part of that is integration with your accounting software, integration with the general ledger.
Hmm.
Um, and it's hard. It is hard to maintain the systems that we build kind of in house for clients. So it takes a little more legwork.
Totally. Totally. Well, and yeah, certainly not to keep this as like a sales pitch, but I think this is going to be like a good segue into large, like I'm wanting to like really get some more context to the blog that you did with us.
Yeah.
On, I think it was like you uncovered like 5 million in unbilled costs.
Mhm.
And I think this would be a good segue so we don't have to worry about this being like a sales pitch for Adaptive.
Yeah.
But for like the specifics, you'd mentioned like integration, but like, was there anything else that like really stood out to you? You mentioned vendor compliance docs, which we obviously do. I don't know if you're using them with your clients, but like, what were some of the big pieces that you could like even advise builders to look at when they are evaluating tools or even looking at Adaptive?
Yeah, I mean, being able to really see the link between your expenses and your draws and covering all of your tracks, knowing if you're curious, oh shoot, did I bill out, that vendor charge, you can look at that expense specifically and see right there in the expense what draw it's tied to. Plus all of the reporting that you guys execute too through draws. I mean, I think I could go on and on, but I off the top of my head, those are a couple things coming to mind is just being able to sort of like follow the thread of the expense to the draw, which is so important for a builder. And then maybe the second is the way that that all feeds into the job budgets page. So, you have the question about that expense, and now you can compare it to your budget and see if that cost code. So, talking not even just about job performance, but like cost code level performance within that job.
Totally. Well, and I think that's great because I mean, that's really, I think when people look at Adaptive or maybe even hear about it, is like, I think it's really easy for them to glom onto like this time saving
Mm,
idea, which it does for sure. But I think like what you're outlining is the more valuable ROI, which is like preventing those misses from happening. It's a
right.
cash flow management tool. It's a financial operations tool, right?
Mhm.
It highlights those big misses that builders come across. I was just talking to another builder out of St. George, Ron Jensen. Shout out Ron. We'll probably have him on the podcast here soon. But point being is I was just like talking to Ron organically, naturally, and he was like just totally off the cuff. And he was pitched on time savings when he bought. And he's like, Reese, we're actually seeing like an uptick in profitability
Yes.
because there is not a single receipt
Right.
that leaves this business or comes into this business that isn't properly categorized,
Right.
that isn't late. We're closing books out on time. We're
Mhm.
making sure that we're hitting our profitability. We're making sure that we have the income to cover those expenses and those costs.
Right.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think when you talk about time saving versus value, I think any construction or like someone that started with skilled trade can appreciate this comparison is you shouldn't really get interested in doing something faster until you're doing it really, really well. So we need to make sure we're doing something really, really well. And then it becomes about speed.
Totally. What are some of the things that you see builders trying to do really fast? Maybe not as much like an umbrella, but like tactical that you see that just like bites them that you and your team might come in and correct.
Yeah, I think, I guess to riff off of Ron, who I also know, so shout out to him as
You know,
well.
Ron, love it, love it.
It is the job level financial coding, like the job costing, where it's like, okay, well, we'll just put this in this job code because I don't remember, or I went to Home Depot, I don't even know what job that was for, so let me forget about that. And our ethos is really like, let's track every dollar. Let's track every dollar you're spending, because if it's like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're
Hmm.
really loose about this receipt, your team is going to see that. They're going to be loose about theirs. And then it just all starts to fall apart from there. And I think that's where dollars become tens of dollars or hundreds or thousands of dollars on a given job.
Totally. Well, and so I love that point of like how you do anything is how you do everything. Like, so when you're working with your customers, is this like coaching them on how to do it? Is it largely like creating a process for them to
Mhm.
follow? What would you say you spend most of your time doing to prevent those types of, well, just throw it here and we'll deal with it later type?
Yeah, that's a good question, and something we as a business have evolved on a bit ourselves in the beginning, which is still what we do. Is we come in, we assess just what are the current operations. We will do a process flow, map out every single step. I like to think that's something that makes us different, maybe some from other firms people will work with, is that operational piece. So like, how does the guy get from the gas station without the receipt back to the office? Like all of those details. And then we look for opportunities to really optimize for the sake of data and making sure that data gets where it's going. So we do sort of, that is maybe more like process strategic consulting side. And then in some cases, if there's a really sophisticated, office manager or somebody in the office, then we can kind of train and implement on some of the processes that we've seen create a lot of success. But we have begun more and more actually offering monthly recurring accounting services for our clients to then support execution on those better processes. And we have found more success when we kind of like stay involved on a monthly basis.
Totally. Totally. That makes a ton of sense. Well, and like even when you've got really what I'm picking down, you mentioned like a sophisticated office manager and also like providing these services. Like I think it really has to do with like ownership and accuracy and like what's getting done. And I think that's a good segue into like I'm just dying, and here we are like 12 minutes in. I'm just dying to know the details and like actually hear the story on the builder that you ran the case study with. You do not
Okay.
have to share names, entities, anything like that. Like I would love to know how you met them, what was their state when you started working with them, getting to a point of realization of what needs done,
Right.
execute, like what was the story?
Yeah. So I think we can do this like, one of those based on a true story where it's like, this is an
Totally.
amalgamation of several different characters, because the reality is this is the case with every single client that comes to us. That blog or case study was maybe the biggest, sexiest number.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like that with every one of our clients. And typically the sort of like story that happens is we start engaging with a builder or GC. They know something is falling through the cracks. They know they're not making as much money on the job as they should be. And when we start digging into the operations of, okay, well, how are you tracking these things? They're either tracking them in spreadsheets or maybe handwritten in some cases. Or it's like 3 or 4 different people that are all managing the data, trying to get it into one place. All that to say that when they really look into it, they actually don't know where all of the transactions are happening. If they're doing cost plus, it's pretty clear that they are not recouping for all of those transactions. So
Sure.
when we assess that and we figure that out, we dive in a little bit deeper, and we've, with the help of Adaptive, which has made this process significantly more efficient and more accurate for us. We also have kind of an in-house system that we've developed to do a very meticulous, detailed project audit, where we essentially, it's almost like a forensic job analysis, where we go back through the whole life of the job, and we piece together every transaction and every draw, and make sure and find all of the transactions that have not been billed back to the client. Um, so in that process, typically what we find is anywhere from thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on any given job that was spent but not recouped. And for any builder out there who is hearing this and thinking, Oh, well, that would never happen. I would never miss out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of transactions on one job, which was how we got to the 5 million with that one client. They're a high-end custom home builder, several really big jobs. And that is where we got at the end of doing project audits across all their jobs. Anyone listening that thinks that that isn't happening to them, I would love to take a look at your books, because I have not worked with anybody yet, from very sophisticated to, our more kind of, I'll say like a junior level owners
Yeah.
who doesn't have that problem.
I think that's like what I think is super powerful, because we see the same thing. And like, it
Mhm.
could be like, are we just like building this echo chamber? Is this problem like actually that rampant in the industry? Right. You see it. And I think that the conversation is less about hundreds of thousands of dollars, no way, or hundreds of dollars, who cares?
Right,
It
right.
goes back to that concept of what are we trying to scale if we don't know what we're scaling, right?
Exactly.
It's like, it has nothing to do with are we making money? It has everything to do with are we making the money that we should be?
Yeah.
And if we have these opportunities project over project, year over year, that we're not capturing income on,
Mhm.
we're not getting the money that we should be doing. We're monetizing a hobby, less running a business.
Totally. And I love the way you said that too, because even if it is the guy that, or the business owner that's saying, well, if it's a couple $100 here or there, who cares? The question back is, okay, how much revenue are you doing this year? Oh, 1 million. Okay. What if in 3 years you're doing 5 million? Now, now where does that $100 kind of land if you're using those same operations? That is scaling. Your success compounds and your issues compound as well. Um,
Totally.
fix those issues. Yeah.
Totally. So for, you mentioned cost plus. I guess when you're looking at these builders and you're pulling back, the curtain, really doing a deep dive, I do want to touch on the forensic side of things, maybe even like a little more tactical, however much you're willing to share
Mhm.
of that process you actually get into. But when it comes to these builders, cost plus is like, I think, kind of the poster child for it, because they're billing their customer directly for cost with a markup, including their margin, right?
Yeah.
But are you seeing like even this cash leakage or profit erosion happening with fixed price builders too? And what does that look like for them?
Yeah, totally. So I think in the first couple of years that we were working even with Adaptive, you guys even were like, well, we're really, for cost plus, not fixed price. And we weren't working too much at that time with fixed price. And since then, we actually just did a huge cleanup and onboarding with an owner who owns several different construction companies, all fixed price billing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized, I was making that mistake early on, and I think you guys were too, to think that there was no value, because even if it's fixed price, they have to be coming up with that price from somewhere. And if they can't look at their historical jobs and get a really accurate hold on how much did we spend and how much did we make, it's the same problem as a cost plus builder. Like the data they need is the same. So we just did a big implementation for a multi-entity builder. And I know he's thrilled because he was tracking in spreadsheets. It just lacked that accuracy that now he will have on the jobs moving forward. So he can say, okay, I thought I was going to make 30% markup on this job, but it looks like it was 25. And how do we tweak our estimates?
All right, listeners, are you guys ready to level up your building game? Well, here's your shot. Join us this October in Dallas for Build Show Live. It's a 3-day construction experience led by Matt Reisinger and the Build Show experts. Now, whether you're a builder, a trades pro, or just an obsessed person with wanting to build better, this is your spot to dive into high performance techniques, cutting edge materials, and next gen home science. If you want the VIP experience, get access to site tours, expert sessions, and exclusive networking events. We're actually hosting one of these as an underwriter, and super stoked to get in the arena with 300 of the top builders in the country to do one-on-one health check, easy Q&A with Matt and Jake Bruton. To register, just go to buildshowlive.com. Build as in BUILD, not BILLED. Buildshowlive.com. Know better, build better. Okay, so you're finding for the fixed price builders, big entity guy. He's super stoked.
Mhm.
I guess when it comes to like the difference here, and you're talking about the historic side. How I pitch this to builders is whether if you're cost plus, you can't plus what you don't cost. If you're fixed price, it's a race to margin. You
Mhm.
had mentioned it's more of like a historical benefit to know like how are we actually doing on these jobs. But do you see any of these concepts and this profit erosion happening in real time for fixed price builders during their jobs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because they're always bidding that next job. So when we start putting those financials together on a job where it's fixed bid, the contract is signed, no matter what we show them they're spending, they are where they are on their revenue. They're continuing to put together estimates. So when I say historical, it's historical, but it is in real time because they can correct as they go. They don't have to wait months or even years to sit down and look at their data. They can just pull up the job budget right away and see, oh shoot, these last 3 jobs I bid are underperforming by 5%. I probably should bump this bid up 5%. Yeah.
Totally. Do you see it being more of an aggregate bump for them? Or are you a part of these conversations like when they're actually bidding their jobs?
We don't get too involved in the estimate side. For us, it's more of a conversation around, because I mean, we're not construction experts and in terms of delivery, and we don't, claim to be.
Sure.
But we are able to see these kind of like trends, historical trends, and provide some guidance there, like exactly what I just said. Hey, the last 3 jobs that you started, you're, 25% of the way in, and this is how it's trending. Let's talk, like whatever you're bidding, you might want to think about that.
Totally. Totally. And I was just curious because I imagine it's more of like from a line item by line item basis of like when you're going through and you're doing these postmortems on jobs and you're like, there was a 5% bleed on this. And it
Mhm.
was largely because of these 3 lines. We
Mhm.
need to take this in consideration on a future job or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we've talked a lot about just looking at the job budget, where we look at a range of different data sets. We look at that variance by vendor. So which vendors did you think were going to come out at X that came out at Y? We look at the cost code level to see, is there just a consistent cost code problem? Is
Mhm.
there, a certain like link to that, whether it's a particular project manager or a team member? Maybe it's a group of jobs managed by a certain team. So we look at the data in all different ways, not just right at face value.
Totally. You mentioned the cost code thing, and that's wild to me that it's still a conversation. Like truly. Again,
Mhm.
it could be like an echo chamber thing, right? Like I'm talking to builders, cost codes are normal. But when you get into like the sales side of adaptive and us talking to builders that are interested enough to take a call or see a demo, or they heard about us so they want to come in, you start to peel the layer back. Like how big of a problem do you think cost code structures are for builders?
Well, I mean, you're kind of saying it. What you're just as much. I mean, you probably talk to more than I do. Like, what trend are you seeing? Is it that there's too many? Is it that they don't know how to like? What is the problem you see?
I love that you're shooting this back to me. I love it. My perspective is I think there's just like a true gap in understanding the intention of cost codes.
Agree.
I think they know what they are, but I don't think they understand how they should be leveraged and the value that they can pose in a business. And I say that primarily. There's one builder that comes to mind, and they're like, we can't ever stick to a set of cost codes because the
Mhm.
owner always likes to add new cost codes. And it's like if that owner understood the intent of cost codes,
Mhm.
they wouldn't be adding cost codes,
Right.
right? They would understand that it's like it's about consistency and building a framework to
Mhm.
where you can actually track your costs consistently month over month, year over year, and
Yes.
understand the health of the business. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I think that was well said. And it's, yeah, because every time you add a cost code, that new bucket has nothing to back it up for, until you build up all of the data behind it. So I'd push back. I wouldn't necessarily say there's never a reason to add. I think there are situations where, there might be like a bank lending situation where sometimes the bank actually requires certain line items to be broken out. So there are situations. I think everything you just said, I fully back up. I think what I would add on to that I see that drives me crazy. There's something about the industry that can be a little bit of like a little bit of high school where it's like, well, this person's doing this, so maybe I need to do that. And I
Right.
see that with cost codes where it's like, well, so and so in this builder group, elite builder group, I won't name, is using
Yeah.
these, And so what we do with builders a lot, there's certain things that can be templatized, but there are other things where we really need to talk about how does your business operate? How does your team think about these transactions? And how do you bid the project? And let's make sure that the cost codes really fit your job rather than having like 500 cost codes. That's a list that you got offline or got from a peer. Um,
Totally.
yeah, because then they implement those and they don't understand them and then they don't use them properly.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where it even goes back to like the Ron story of like you've got to commit, right? Like you've
Mhm.
got to commit, you've got to know what you're committing to. And if you can, that's when you're going to start to see those benefits come through.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I have a client we've worked with for a really long time who is very self-made and his cost codes don't look like anybody else's. I'll put it that way. And I think sometimes he has that sort of like imposter syndrome where he thinks they should be fancier or better or have bigger words in them. And his financials are really strong. And we just talk about how they're working for him and why they're working and for their team, and that there really is no need to change them. Nobody's looking at them besides us. Uh,
Right.
so,
Dude, I
yeah.
love it. I love it. Um, I am curious on, you mentioned the forensic side early on, and I've heard this from several of our partners,
Mhm.
how they'll leverage adaptive to just uncover these types of nightmares, but also like be able to um, execute on a forensic deep dive much more quickly and thoroughly.
Mhm.
How are you leveraging adaptive for that? Or I guess, how do you run that forensic side? And again, if you've got the secret sauce, you don't have to share everything, but I'm curious, like what you guys do there.
No, it's funny when you said that earlier about like not uncovering secrets. I'm like I am happy to show anybody what we do because it is freaking hard. Like it's not easy. It's a lot of work and it's a process that we learn and we perfect every time that we do it. So I welcome anybody to attempt this as well because I think it's very specialty that we're even willing to do it. But so I think I mentioned earlier, I mean, basically it's like forensic in the sense that we're like rebuilding the whole crime scene piece by piece and trying to figure out where everything goes. We have to work a lot with the builder, obviously, to do that. Where adaptive comes into play is if they've already been using it, amazing. It gives us a ton of visibility. If they haven't been using adaptive, where it's really helpful, which I don't know that this is something you end up talking about a lot with adaptive, but it's probably so overlooked is the UI and the interface of working in adaptive supersedes QuickBooks by a lot.
Yeah.
So it may be that there is a lot of this work we could do in QuickBooks, but it would, and this is where we get into time savings, it would take us a lot longer and it would just be a lot more painful. So all of like the filtering views, bulk editing of transactions, being able to look at transactions in different reporting styles by really any variable we want to look at, that helps us to do this extremely tedious work.
Mhm.
Um, does that answer your question? I don't know if I
It,
like gave process necessarily explain the process, but
no, this is perfect because that's like even how I explain it. Like I will there, there's certain builders that you never forget, especially like being in sales, right? Like the experience of like, them starting the conversation and then starting to see the light in the conversation and then getting into the product, right? And then there might be like some friction or some like, oh shit moments for them, right? There was one builder, and it was in the early days. This was like probably like May of 2023. And they were using another product that was synced to QuickBooks, and they were like skeptical of adaptive. They're like, we think we're getting this done, but like it's compelling enough for us to try. Like we'll get into adaptive, and they'd sync their QuickBooks to adaptive,
Mhm.
and they like immediately shot back like, your product is trash. It's showing our books are a total mess. Like there's no, like, how is it even suggesting this stuff? And we're like, obviously 6 months into go to market, like digging into it, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, let's look at your QuickBooks file. And then we start to uncover, it's like, no, you actually do have hundreds of bills that are still open from 2017,
Oh my
right? Like you do have dozens of bills that hadn't been synced properly with jobs, right? And then that was like, they're still customers of ours today. Like that was the, like, you're the immediate enemy to the, you're the savior that quickly. And I think it goes into that, like, just my question originally too, what does the forensic process look like? You
God.
aced it with the simple UI, right? And
Mhm.
the thoughtfulness of the product. But it literally, for this guy, was syncing QuickBooks to Adaptive
Right.
and like getting this like overwhelmed moment of, I've got a lot of stuff that's wrong in QuickBooks. And
Mhm.
because QuickBooks is so difficult to understand and so few people at an organization actually understand it to a level of it being helpful,
Mhm.
it creates this dynamic where like business owners will stick their head in the sand saying, this is this person's role. Everything's good. Did we make money this year? Yes.
Yeah.
Good. On to the next.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, they've got these compounding issues that we've already talked about in the beginning of this episode that are just like, just hovering over them until they get addressed.
Totally. And you just nailed it. It's like you said that so beautifully is like they make it one person's job because they know that diving into QuickBooks, they can't even begin to wrap their minds around that, which I totally understand. And then the fact, I mean, that's a ROI for you right there on using Adaptive or a tool like it is you plug it in and in 5 minutes you can suddenly see all of these things that were hiding in your QuickBooks that you never would have really been able to see yourself. And also maybe identify that this poor person that you have made it to be their job, perhaps that's not fair to them and that they really need more support. Because I've had owners in that situation in the past, and they'll kind of respond, and I'll explain the process of cleaning up their QuickBooks
Mm-hmm.
so that Adaptive is accurate, they can see the data, et cetera. And then they might get overwhelmed and say, oh, well, whatever, like we're making money, it's fine. And then it's the explanation of, okay, well, that's your general ledger. That's like literally the kidneys of your business. If that's not
Mm-hmm.
correct, taxes aren't, and on and on. So, um, yeah.
Totally. Totally. No. And I think that, to kind of to the point of the individual is, I mean, there's certainly a lot of pride that comes with the money side
Mhm.
of any business, right? Accounting, finance, bookkeeping, controlling, stuff like that. Rightfully so.
And
There
fear.
should be pride there.
And
And
fear. Yeah.
maybe pride motivated by fear, right? And they want that control over
Mhm.
the process. And it's kind of like a lose-lose situation for them in a manual world
Mhm.
because of the reality of the volume, and
Mhm.
not even like just the volume and the quantity of the invoices, receipts, APAR. It's the volume and the zeros that come on these transactions, building these huge projects, right? And it's like, if there's just a single simple error, it could be you hit the decimal instead
Right.
of the extra zero, and
Yeah.
it's throwing everything off, and it's impossible to go back and find. So again, I think like when you're talking about this, it's like it's worth it just to understand the health snapshot of your books, but also again, it's leveraging, to your point of what Wildest Dreams is doing, is like leveraging leading edge technology
Mhm.
to assist the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's technology, and it's also finding, like, not to promote, but truly finding the right people to help you do that. Not putting the weight of your business, the financial burden of your business on your office manager, or in some cases it's people's moms or brothers. It's unfair to those people. It's unfair to you as the owner. And there are people out there that are doing this very well that can help you. And
Mhm.
I think with what we're talking about, we're like ragging a little bit on the business owner that's, doing these things, but I am seeing in the years I've been doing this a shift. Like there is a new wave happening, I think, in the industry and a turnover. Case in point, the success of Adaptive or the success of Wildest Dreams. And I'm curious because you've been doing this for a while too, even before Adaptive, being with prior construction software companies. Like
Mhm.
what are you seeing as the change, like in what we're talking about? Like, do you feel like the clouds are parting?
Yeah, so I think so. My answer is largely going to be around like your comment towards like ragging on builders. Like I don't think that it's as much as ragging on builders as there's been more discussion and conversation brought up about the reality that they deal with, right? And sometimes the reality isn't pretty.
Right.
And to answer your immediate question of like how the market is shifting is, I think that builders after 2008, recovering from that, a lot of businesses were born, a lot of businesses were failed there in construction. Get over that hump. Then we see COVID 2020, tons of supply chain issues matched with truly historical low interest rates. And you've got the supply chain dynamic with the market getting flooding with clients wanting to build and a really hot market and a ton of appreciation, right? There's a lot of builders in 2020 that ran out there and thought that they were the best business people in the world because they could double, triple their top line revenue in 12, 18 months, right? So I think like kind of that perfect storm comes back into this huge emphasis being placed on, okay, I've seen it all, right? You've got the business owner that started in early 2000s or 2008, and they weathered the storm and they built something that was consistent and they were making money and building families and employing people and impacting community. And they saw a dip and then they saw an explosion. And then you start to get these people that pull back. I think the market is ripe and truly begging for an easier way to understand their business through the lens of a business. Am I making what I should be making on these projects?
Right.
I think from a technology standpoint, it's a super interesting time to be in construction because you've got a huge new generation wave coming into the sector, much more tech interested, tech forward. And I think a lot of them, I mean, as you know, construction is a generational type business, right? Daughter buying the business from mom, dad, brothers, whoever, right? And I think they saw those trials and turbulence. There was turbulence, but they see those situations and they want to come at it through a little bit more strategic lens. And the opportunity that poses for technology is to provide legitimate, automated, compelling solution, not just what was typically bloating the market from an option standpoint historically. There's a ton of products entering the space. I think I was talking to Nick Schiffer at the Contractor Coalition Summit, and he was saying there was like 200 new software products or something at the International Builder Show. And it's like, it's just exploding, right? And I think, again, you don't stand up a software, you don't raise a ton of money, you don't take a huge personal financial risk to build a product if everything was so great that was already being presented, right? So I think like my answer, long-winded, albeit, is kind of an accumulation of all those things. If you're a general contractor looking to scale your construction business and you're serious about treating it like a business, then this one's for you. The Contractor Coalition Summit is a 4-day, all-in, no bullshit experience hosted by Brad Levitt from AFT in Phoenix, Nick Schiffer from NS Builders up in Boston, Massachusetts, also the co-host of the Modern Craftsman podcast, Tyler Grace from TRG Home Concepts, also a co-host of the Modern Craftsman podcast, Morgan Molitar from Construction to Style, and Mark Williams from Mark D. Williams Custom Homes, and the host of the Curious Builder podcast. Now, I give you all that context because I want to highlight that these are real builders sharing what actually works, and they are massively motivated to help the industry better as a whole. In this event, you'll learn everything from AIA documents, cost plus contracts, org charts, brand partnerships, how to position your business to be as healthy as it possibly can, and when as much work as is reasonable. Now, there will be high impact strategy, real talk, great food, even better people in attendance. And if you want a discount, hit me up at reese@adaptive.build or go to my Instagram at adaptivereese. And we've got a promo code. The promo code is adaptive25 for a 20% discount. Space is limited. Get in while you can. We'll see you in Chicago.
Yeah, no, I love that history lesson. That was, I think you said that really, really nicely. And it's a good way to sort of think of the snapshot. And I'm sure you just took some builders back through time of their prior years too. I think the only other thing I would say to that is one thing that I see that is really cool is whether it's the new generation or people who have been doing this for decades, is the way that other technology they see, even just in their personal life, gives them that aha moment of, there must be a better way to do this in my business. Like, whether it's their own personal banking apps. I've had clients say that to me before. Like, when I'm in my banking app or when I'm doing my family's finances, I can do this or that. I want to be able to do that in my business, to which I respond, we can definitely do that in your business. And that's cool to see. Then what I've seen is business owners starting to sort of bring those ideas from totally unrelated areas of their life and look at their business through that opportunity, which is exciting.
Totally, totally. I think there's just like generally there's just a lot more intent happening in construction right now.
Yeah.
And even like it's not even just like the new wave. That's certainly a big influence. You get a lot of younger people, more tech forward. I mean, they're hearing AI, they're curious in how they apply it to their business. But I'm serious. I mean, we've got customers that are 60, 70 years old. They've been in the business for 50 years.
Mhm.
And they're even seeing it. They're like, this is ridiculous. This has always just been status quo. It's always been it's a good enough process. There's options out here to make it better. And they'll adopt very quickly. Very
Mhm.
quickly. The problem resonates with them. When you talk to them, they say, who likes tracking receipts?
Yeah.
Like, it's like that's a no-brainer, right? It's like the shoebox method. It's like, dude, okay, it's working, but when you really break it down, it's like, what is the time it takes to process a receipt? And you look at the dollar amount on the receipt, and it's important to track every dollar, but you're like, it cost me more to process and track this receipt than it was actually worth, right?
Totally.
That's when you start to like see those guys start scratching their head and they're like, let's talk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love it. Anything else that you think is tactical that you could share with builders? I thought this was great from a forensic standpoint, how to view your business, but anything else tactical that you would want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I think something that's been very top of mind for me recently that we didn't discuss, that it definitely is a huge aspect of adaptive, and I think a problem that I don't necessarily get to with my clients until we sort of put the fires out is their AR cycle, which for those listening is how fast you are making that turnaround on creating an invoice and then how quickly your client pays that invoice. I don't think enough owners are really thinking about that. And also how that feeds into bill pay and the timing of how long does it take my client to pay me? When am I paying my vendor? And how long am I just out that cash? So, I don't necessarily have tips there, but it's definitely something I'm thinking about a lot and encouraging all of our clients to also think about more and see how we can tighten up that part of the financials.
Totally. I love that you brought that up. Happenstance, another builder. He was actually out of Austin. Same conversation. He's
Mm-hmm.
in there. He's like, I'm getting ready to do this big project. It's a development, dozens of units. He was like, I used to be able to float AP at a much smaller level of business. Floating AP for the listeners is you get $15,000, $20,000 in invoices. You can basically carry that as the lender to get your subs paid, waiting for you to receive the money into your business to cover those costs.
Yes. It's basically
Amazing.
lending yourself money, essentially.
You're a banker, not a builder at that
Right.
point.
Right.
And point being is the conversation there was he was like, we've got to figure out how to speed this up. And like the immediate side of that was like quicker payments to the subs.
Mm.
But then there was like, it takes us a week to get our draws together. And then it takes the bank 10 days. And sometimes they got to send someone out to inspect it. And then we've got to get the money to the subs. And like, you're looking at it like, it's almost like a 20 business day process. And you're like, this is absolutely insane. And that's where it's like, it's more about that immediacy and understanding. It's like, okay, here's all of my costs that I have coming in the pipeline. I can see a real time view of what my cash flow position actually is and what projects I need to be collecting from. And then how quickly can I get that invoice out to the customer or to the bank so that then they can fund confidently the cash that I'm needed to pay the costs that I have coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, and then it's when there's the worst case scenario where someone is 2, 3, 4 months behind on invoicing their clients at all, and that's like it hurts my heart because they're funding their clients' projects, and then when you get caught up and we're in this great place, okay, now we're invoicing every single month at the exact same time, awesome. then it becomes this fun game of like, how can we get that tighter and tighter and tighter so that you as the business owner are holding onto your cash for as long as possible, which you can then leverage in a variety of ways. So
Totally. No, I think that's great. I think that's like the general theme wrapped up nicely in this conversation is like, you really can't get to that point until you've made a lot of the checkpoints that we had talked about. Right.
Accounting operations.
Accounting operations, Chloe Brown, everybody. You talked about not wanting to plug yourself, but let's just end on like a little plug for Wildest Dreams, how they can get in touch with you, where this process typically starts, what suite of services do you typically provide?
Yeah, you can find me at Chloe, CHLOE, at thinkwildest.com. Our website is thinkwildest.com. And I mean this so much. I love talking to business owners, and I would be happy to. Usually I'll schedule a 30-minute call. We go an hour, and I just enjoy having those conversations. And even if we don't end up working together, just being able to shed some light. I do this because I love supporting small business owners that are feeding their families and feeding their teams' families. And I'm super passionate about helping those business owners be more successful. So I would love to chat.
Love it. Love it. I think that's great. And I think even just like to the early remark of the sales consulting pro bono that you provided, it's all about learning about the problem, right? To Chloe's point, she loves having conversations with builders, understanding the problems and situations you guys are in. We've had her bring us customers. We've sent her customers for the last 2-3 years, and they all have great experiences. So hit Chloe up if you're wanting to do these deep dives and just get a little bit better financial pulse on your business. But Chloe, this was great. You crushed your first. Was this your first podcast? This is your first podcast.
I don't think it's like my first, but it's first maybe in a long time. I don't think I was born for the stage. So
You were great. You were great. Yeah. You were nervous about doing this. You absolutely crushed. This was awesome. It was a good conversation. I love that you asked me questions. Normally I'm the one just asking questions. This was good. It was a good dialogue.
good. Well, I think with like the sales process, especially, I always say I'm terrible at sales, but I make a lot of sales because I'm genuinely like very curious. And I think that's like just the way like to sell, because if you're genuinely curious, you have a stimulating conversation with the person about the things they care about. And so I'm glad that came across a little bit.
You did great. You did great. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Wait, are you going to be in Sunbelt? You're not going to be at Sunbelt.
No, I'm going to that construction accounting or accounting with Hector Garcia. It's like a
That's right.
small group doing like a technology and construction think tank thing. So I will talk about it after, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever. Well, enjoy. And I guess, yeah, we'll see you when we see you.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Cool.
Reese. I appreciate you.